and what this whole event is about is something also very dear to my heart. I've been in Thailand about 32 years, 25 years in IT services, and I would probably say 20 years in various leadership roles in the whole space of data. So data and what data programs, some of the leading firms and companies across banking, telco, retail, and how these companies leverage data for business value or improving client and customer experience, passenger experience, user experience, etc. It's just the growth that I have seen, and all of you, whether or not you're in the industry or not, is the explosion of data and how we use data is phenomenal. It's just, it's at a pace, and we talk about X, it's certainly not linear, but it is exponential to like the nth degree. So today we're going to learn more firsthand about some of the leading startups and companies operating here in Southeast Asia and in Thailand, how they're leveraging data and how we can leverage data both from an industry company perspective, but also how is that improving our user experience, whether you're using a mobile phone, whether you're a passenger, how that experience and how that all connects.
สวัสดีค่ะ Good afternoon. Are you ready for the panel? Now you may notice that all of them are from different roles, like Lin from financial area, Dr. Nun from agricultural, Dr. Sathawat from the property side, and Michael from marketing side. What's going on in your industries regarding the integration of data into business process?
So Mula, basically I want to explain, I'm basically an ex-banker. I'm a commercial banker for a long time, and then I turned to become an entrepreneur, and I started this fintech called Mula. And the genesis of the name is that it's colloquial for money in American terms in Thailand. If you go to a bank, most of them will say, I don't really want to lend to anyone that's not earning more than 25,000 baht a month, usually. And the first thing that banks do is that they would check the credit bureau. If you don't have a credit bureau, you're thin in your credit bureau, or if you have a negative credit bureau because you've had a problem, it's like immediately rejected. So for fintechs like mine, what we're trying to do is yes to looking at the traditional data that we have. Those are what banks use. So when you go in to a bank to try and apply for a loan, they will ask you, what's your age? Are you male or female? Do you work? Please give us what your monthly income is. What kind of debt do you have? And then they would look at what we call behavioral data that comes from either their own systems of collections, or they'll go to the credit bureau. And that's what usually banks do. And that's why the approval rates for banks are really bad, because there's so many other things that one can look at, what I call now the alternative data set, that newer fintechs are trying to do in order to give some of these underserved guys an opportunity to kind of borrow money at a more reasonable rate. So what are some of the alternative data that's now being looked at? Things like psychometric tests, for example. So you can actually give a psychometric test to an individual that wants to borrow. It's probably 15-20 questions. And from there, not myself, but psychologists, psychiatrists that are very good at trying to distinguish what an individual is like. And usually what we would look for is somebody's willingness to pay as opposed to ability to pay. So the top part of the data is your ability to pay. How much do you earn? Are you living in the right address? And all of that. Those are traditional data. So now it's the willingness to pay. So you ask sort of psychometric questions like, do you usually, what do you usually like to do? Or what kind of hobbies do you have? And different questions like this that then can hopefully give somebody an insight. How many bills do you have? Do you usually pay your bills on time? And it's done in such a way that we can get what we call an honesty score. This is actually, Mula works with an Israeli company that has this type of analysis for us, and it comes out with a score. There's other things that people are using, which is getting harder and harder now. And you know, in the past, you can actually give access to somebody to scrape your phone. You know, now it's getting harder and harder because now even Facebook is saying, you know, you can't scrape more than the first or second level. But that being said, though, your phone actually has a lot of interesting data about yourself. For example, what kind of apps do you usually use? How often do you charge your phone? Do you let your phone sort of run off? What kind of SMSs are you getting? Now I think even Google is trying to put a stop to that, but your phone actually carries a lot of things about yourself, including your photographs that you take. How often do you call somebody called your mom on the phone? May make you a better risk credit than somebody who is having a lot of gambling apps on their phone, for example. So that's, you know, phone data, right? So, but now you need to have consent. So the consent part is quite important, that you need to actually give consent. Things like behavioral data, so a lot of things like learning platforms. So we have a learning platform and we start to track who likes to learn, who's using, who's reading your blogs, who's getting more certificates, because the idea is that the more you want to learn, probably the better credit you are. So we're able then to also study this kind of a behavior pattern. Not only do you pay your loans back on time or not on time, which is actually at the top part. Other things like customer bank statement data is also another source. So not necessarily in Thailand at the moment, but in other countries, people do say, look, upload your statement, and so that you can use AI to study what your patterns are like how much loans do you have, what is your expenditure, what you spend money on, you know, are you servicing a lot of debt, etc., etc. Now, the other kind of data that we would love to get, but it's really hard, are things like utility data. You know, do you pay your bills on time for electricity and water? They're probably the best and most predictive type of data that one can have, certainly in the banking industry. We would love to have transactional data. What do you actually spend your credit cards on? You know, are you buying this? Are you buying that? You know, how much are you actually spending? So that's also another type of data that is really, really interesting. So all of this now we put into a regression model, and you know, with some smart AI technology, then be able to give some predictability of that individual, and then hopefully the approval rates would be a lot higher than what traditional banks did. So that's what sort of one use of data in the new fintech world is versus the old financial services industry world. The other, okay, here we go. The topic of this is how to use data to enhance the user experience. So for us, I think I've covered kind of transactional data and behavioral data, right? The approval processes around that. But where banks really sort of screw up and a lot of new companies or companies kind of mess up is that there's no single source of truth for data. And you know, there's a lot of dirty data around, which makes it really, really hard to kind of figure out, you know, how to actually analyze the data. So for new startups like us, it's quite easy because we make sure there's one source of truth. For existing companies, you know, that's probably the first step that one needs to take, is to make sure that the data that you have there's a clean source of it that you can then pull to analyze whatever you wish to analyze. For us, we also use something called process data. So anyone that uses our platform, we are able to track where are you stuck in terms of your KYC process, where are you stuck in terms of your usage, etc. And that comes almost as an alert to us all the time because we're pulling the process data in order to make sure that we're unlocking and unblocking areas that people are stuck in. And so that's another way that we're using it, and hopefully our users get a much better experience, and we're fixing our technology as and when needed.
I'm the CEO and co-founder of Listen Feel. So as a name, so what we try to do is that we listen to the field, we correct the data. Listen for us meaning that we listen to soil, listen to environment, listen to farmers, and then try to understand what we can do with the data to help them improve their productivity, reduce risk from climate uncertainty, and also provide suggestions to improve sustainability or make the information to do farming in a more environmental friendly to our planet. We set up Listen Field 6 years ago, and right now, what kind of data that we are working on? So we work from what we call is that we integrate a solution from soil to harvest. So we analyze soil information to provide what kind of soil nutrition that available in your farm. By the way, is there anyone that experience farming? So whatever I say, that's that. I about to say that whatever I say, then everyone will not know that this is right or wrong. Over there. Okay. So we analyze soil nutrition information by utilizing NIR or near infrared sensor to understand that what kind of nutrition that available in the soil. Next, we provide suggestion that based on the soil nutrition that available in your soil, what kind of fertilizer that should apply so that can provide sufficient nutrition for your plant. During the growing stage, then we provide a monitoring system that help you understand what the health of your crop, what kind of stress that your crop are facing by using a satellite remote sensing, and we provide predictive analytic model to analyze various kind of factor, and then provide you what kind of yield that you get at the coming season by considering climate uncertainty. So this is what Listen Field is providing.
Different hats, so on in academics, teaching as well as to a researcher, community providers, knowledge sharing in a way. Of course, in professional practice, we're working today on behalf of our consulting. And my field is I do have backgrounds in architecture and engineering, so it's a bit really quick on what's Oricon do. So any engineering, any build environment from physical asset, building to infrastructure, water and energy, etc. So on my part, we'll talk about digital and data. So put any innovations relevant into digitalization from physical assets into some virtual reality. So from feasibility toward into building a project life cycle. So design, construction, and even handover. So my interest in would be property management or even the city scale.
My name is Michael. I'm a co-founder of BuzzEVs. And we are a CRM loyalty platform. But basically what we do is we help brands and companies engage in their customers. This is the way the world is moving. And ultimately, everyone wants to collect their first-party data. Because nobody wants to rely on Google or Facebook or Apple to collect the data for the customers, right? They always want to own the data. So the value of what we do is we allow them to be able to engage in their customers and collect the data from them, to be able to start the data analysis process. Without collecting any data, there's nothing to analyze. Okay, and this is the difference between why people use our platform versus why they try to do everything themselves. Okay, and nobody wants to reinvent the wheel. So don't go out there trying to rebuild this kind of platform because the solution is cheap enough for nowadays that you just use the system that we have and you can collect all the data without having to reinvent the wheel again. That's the beauty of technology nowadays. Okay, and so just some interesting facts from us last year. So we've done about 100 million redemption in our system, and basically recurs every month after month. And that's equivalent to like 200 cups of coffee redeemed every minute, okay? So I'll give you I'm sure everyone here drinks coffee, so that's a lot of coffee you're redeeming, okay? And of course, they don't redeem just coffee, just as an analogy. And we've issued 15 billion points in our system last year. And you think about that, if that was a 10 baht coin, it basically go around Earth 12 times, okay? So that gives you an idea of the scale of our business. And the funny thing is that most people don't actually know our business because we're all the people behind the scenes. So we're B2B business, so most consumers are unaware of what we do. But I'm sure if I open your phone today, I'm sure somewhere in your phone it's using our system, okay? So that's basically what we do. Of course, and behind all that is basically the data that drives all that. So the pillars of our business is what helps you collect the data. I'll give you an example. Our first business, obviously the main one, which is the loyalty marketing platform and the CRM platform. So that's your first step. Without that, you don't do anything else, right? Once you collect the data of customers, you have that, you entice them, you give them the carrot, come give us some information, I'll give you a Starbucks cup of coffee, something like that. So our second part of the business is that in order to give you that cup of coffee, we have to source all the products, okay? So we give you So pretty much almost all the banks here, for example, if you go redeem your points for your credit card, a lot of those banks are using our service to fulfill the product for you. Okay, you're just unaware of who's doing the fulfillment, right? So the benefit of what we do is everything's real time and digital. Resourcing the rewards became one of our core business because if there's no benefit for any customers, even you give them the points, nobody wants it. So we realized this early on that you have to build a CRM and loyalty platform with the sourcing part, otherwise nobody wants the points. Okay. And our third pillar of business is basically, as I mentioned, selling your own products. So the reason why we're so good at the e-commerce business is because we understand our customer from the first and second step, right? So once we understand our customers, we are able to segment the customers to different personas for different brands. So you can imagine if you're a gas company, like a PTT, and then you compare it to, let's say, a FMCG company like Sing, who uses us for water, or compare it to a shopping mall like Mega Bangna out there in Bangna. You can imagine kind of personas we're trying to segment is different, completely different, right? So therefore, our system has to be able to be adaptable and understand the data models for all our customers, depending on the industry they're in.
Let's discuss about the benefit and the success story that we would like to share.
So as my part of business pipeline, so for relevant into the building or even infrastructure is greater. So what we actually handle with the data is right now, it kind of transitioning with digital changes a lot. So you look at on the right, we talk about 2D information. Right? So you look at piping, let's say it's piping. Pretty much on plan or 2D, a projecting a diagram as a single line, we call it single line. That's it. That's the norm of with our technologies, whatever we communicating to everyone, every stakeholders. But it isn't real. It's only a guideline. If you look at your own house, your property, etc., that's the guideline. That's the how would pipe would go through. But is it going underneath or is that going above the ceiling? We have no ideas in a way. So the technology digital transformations right now we're going on the left. So we will try to communicate that what will be as close as realistic as much as possible. What we actually have to put in 3D, in order to understand part of architectural engineering, understand conflict before you actually hand over to different stages. So most important, we want to making a right argument first during design stage. Making a lot of mistake, fine. Rather than we spend a lot of money, right? So use the right data at the right time during the design stage, and then we hand over. Once you hand over to construction, so the conflict will be less and lesser. So that expectation, or even to life cycle.
Financial services, I think I kind of covered it. The issue with financial services is that there's a lot of legacy systems. And with the legacy systems comes a lot of dirty data. And I think the trend, certainly for the legacy traditional banks, is that there is a lot of vendors now trying to sell this middleware so that you can pull data into some kind of a middleware and then you start to offer perhaps products and services on top of that. I think there's a lot of cleaning up to do. And I think financial services also is problematic because it's a regulated industry. So data privacy, the use of data, regulators, etc. So I think there's a lot of work that's being done. Hopefully it doesn't stop them from being innovative, and that's why there's room for fintechs like us. To try and play in that space. Also, I think a lot of the financial industry is trying to use some of this alternative data, but because their systems are so clunky, they almost have to. So, I think Siam Commercial Bank, for example, they went and set up a completely different group of people. I know K-Bank is looking at a completely different set of systems so that they can get rid of some of the legacy systems and build new products on new systems and be able to, link through some of the things that Michael's doing, for example, or link to other kind of alternative data source. So I think that's where the industry is going, but the fintechs, we gotta move faster, but these guys are really big, right? They've got lots of capital, they've got a lot of firepower, so maybe people like us have to almost be maybe a supplier to them or some kind of tech that we can give to them and work in partnerships. So I think maybe the partnership and collaboration model may be the way to go, with financial services. For us, we also use something called process data. So anyone that uses our platform, we are able to track where are you stuck in terms of your KYC process, where are you stuck in terms of your usage, etc. And that comes almost as an alert to us all the time because we're pulling the process data in order to make sure that we're unlocking and unblocking areas that people are stuck in. And so that's another way that we're using it, and hopefully our users get a much better experience, and we're fixing our technology as and when we go.
For agriculture, in supply chain for agriculture is very long, as you know. It's like we have to involve a lot of stakeholders, from farmers, from producer, buyer, or a processor, logistic, policy maker, and more like input company, input manufacturer, like fertilizer company, machinery company, and different stakeholder require different kind of data to make efficient of their work. For farmers, they need data that help them improve productivity, or they need the data that tell them what to do to overcome their challenge, like a drought or a high cost of fertilizer. For buyer side, they need the data that to understand that how they can operate their factory in effective way. So this is the kind of information that right now we are producing for the industry to work effectively. And for agriculture, it's like we cannot just work with only one stakeholder and think that the thing will be better. For us, we have to work with several stakeholders and work together like an ecosystem that we can improve productivity and at the same time provide the information that other stakeholders can be utilized. Or we have to provide the information that on the corporate side can utilize to improve their operation, but at the same time farmers can still be benefit from the platform or the information that we provide.
If you look at the traditional conversation, people talk about loyalty program. This doesn't really help you generate loyal customers. And the actual answer is no, it doesn't. Okay. So because the world has changed so much, if you come to some of my other talks, you'll know that from our data, and this is the whole point, is from the data analysis. Customers nowadays are very unloyal. Okay. Frankly speaking, in the good old days when I was younger, you would be shown a commercial on the television, right? And you had no choice but to watch that commercial, right? And you didn't have YouTube, you didn't have a phone, you click, or next. So you basically didn't have a choice what you saw. So what you bought, what you stuck with is based on what you were exposed to. But today, it's no longer that way. So today, everything's on demand. So therefore, what brands are exposed to the consumer nowadays is based on what the consumer wants to see and when they want to see it, or the owner of the platforms. So what that means is that as long as you pay for it, you pay Facebook, you pay Google, your brand will be shown to the customer. Very simple. This is the bidding process, right? So now the good part of that is that you have a lot of small brands now, which in the past couldn't compete, let's say, with Coke or Kellogg or whoever, Unilever. Now they can, because why? They just pay a little higher and they can get exposure to mass consumers. But the downside of that is there's no loyal customers anymore because they're just happy to change whatever they see. Right? So then you're building a business of building CRM and loyalty, and you're like, well, does loyalty work? The answer is no. Then how do you transform that business to something that can generate value for a customer, the corporate customer in this case, and ultimately to the end consumer? The answer to that is you change your thought process from building loyal customers to just engaging in customers. But if you look at, there's an average, you have 27 seconds, and this is from our data, okay? The minute the customer comes onto your platform, you have 27 seconds to convince them that they should stay with the brand. 27. And you have 3 pages to do it in. That's it. Once you pass 27 seconds, pass 3 pages, either they're there or they're gone.
The industry landscape, how's the trend in the next few years?
Once we purchasing, constructing, packaging, logistically, or even planning for further advanced technologies to be actually able to plan even constructions. What's the sequence of constructions we take place before the constructions begin. So this kind of benefit that we are able to forecast productivity, efficiency, etc. So that's the kind of challenge and so on. But of course, the touch base on AI, and well, of course, we have to start to get involved. Well, luckily, of course, we're not going to lose the job for sure as other designers, engineering, architecture. But I totally agree. We have to move things faster, more productivity and more efficiency. Companies start to do ChatGPT, put into some code compliance right now. So help engineer or even designers to get things correctly, right? So that's kind of things moving forward for. But yes, of course, the benefit we now carry out, we do one single source of truth. That's what we're term for. So we do one things and a smarter way in order to extract different type of data and different purpose and benefit. Right? So cost, project management, constructability, etc. So that's a big one.
The biggest headache we have with data and the way the trend is working, and where AI will help a lot. Okay, because as you can see with AI now, everyone's going crazy. And if you look at, for example, Mark Zuckerberg talked about metaverse. Metaverse is, yes, like the movie Matrix. Yes, maybe 20 years from now. And yes, absolutely he is right. The world is going to move there. It's just a matter of when. But it's not there yet. But AI today is there already. And whoever hasn't tried ChatGPT, you gotta try it. Guys, you guys just roll. Do a Buzzy Bee introduction for the CEO of myself. I can tell you, I could spend 1,000 hours writing it, and ChatGPT 30 seconds does better than me in 1,000 hours. Okay, there's no way, no matter how good you think you are, you're not gonna beat AI. So everything in our business now is pretty much using AI. So I say every staff, every business unit, you have to use AI and the data to help you optimize the output. If you don't, your company will die. That's how serious we're talking about. So I've asked my developer, by Q4 this year, I expect that you shouldn't have a single code of customized code anymore from our platform. Because our platform is already a product. I expect that everything should be automated. The designer should just change the pictures, change the design layouts, and you should click one button, come back an hour, and your whole site should be done. Of course, the customization part you need to do yourself, but you should get 95% what used to take 3 weeks down to 1 day. That's the kind of efficiency you can get with the AI. And how does AI work? Well, without the data, there's no AI, right? The AI is only as smart as what you feed it, right? So I can tell you right now that the world that we live in today, you think is advanced, you wait 2 or 3 years from now. Most of us are going to be, I hate to say it, especially the CEOs, most of us are going to be out of a job because you won't have to write anything because everything is spit out by itself. So the ability for us to tell marketers what to do to market the products in the future, you won't need to do it because why? The machine learning, the AI will help you do that automatically. You get the data, it will segment the data, it will target the right customer for you, it will know what kind of promotion to best recommend for you based on the data you've taught it. Right? And when you link all this together, then you have an absolutely amazing solution.